here we go. We should be live. Welcome back. We wait for the confirmation from the chat that the audio is okay as usual. And then we really start. Come on, guys. Is it okay? Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, good to go. Okay, so welcome back. So 1 week is passed again. Time is so fast. And today you can see with us there is Aris that join us.
Hey! Wait.
So-
Let me put my new hat on. Yeah, that's it. All right.
There we go. So yes, so if you have questions for Aris, be ready when the time will come, and he will tell you everything about anything you ask, all the secrets of the physics.
Yeah, and tell you your fortune.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start from last week FAQ from the stream last week. As usual, I repeat this all the time. If you don't see your question, it's because the answer is either no or I don't know. So all those questions about can you add this or can you add this, can this be done, cannot be done. Usually if you don't see that, it means that pretty much the answer is no, and there will be no point in doing an FAQ where every answer is no. So here you go. I selected a couple of questions. One is from Felipe Vaiano, and he's asking, he would like to ask about how to calculate bump stop up, bump stop down, packet range, and what exactly is the zero design of the suspension. So this is not that easy to go through on a stream like this. But let's start from the zero design, and that basically means the suspension with the attach point and the position of the wheel that you define in the suspension file. So it's like the way you design the suspension when you give it to the software. Now, what is happening is as soon the simulation starts, because the car is pushing on the top of the suspension with its weight, immediately what is going to happen is that the car is going down and the suspension is changing the geometry accordingly. So in order to then reset the situation, you have to start adding what we call the rod length, which is basically you make the arm that connects to the spring longer, and so the car will start to rise, and eventually you can, but you will also could not sometimes go back to the zero design of the suspension. So it's important to understand that if you design your suspension and you're expecting roll centers and instant centers and all those things to be in a certain way, it's important to understand that those are very dynamic as the simulation is running. So as the car is moving, the roll center are moving and so on. So it doesn't mean if you design the suspension in one way and then you put the car and the car is much lower than the position that you design, you will find all your calculation potentially wrong. Now, what is the bump stop up and bump stop down? Now, basically, again, it's a bit complicated, but you can imagine that there are two spaces in this situation. There is the suspension space that is moving with the wheel, and then there is the car space. So we express bump up and bump down sort of in the car space, but they are really in the tire space. It basically means how much the suspension can move up and down from the zero design before hitting the bump stop. Now, the packet range, on the other hand, is different, because the packet range tells you how much the suspension can actually move, taking into account the rod length. I will try to give you a very, very quick example. So imagine the situation where you have a 20 centimeter bump stop up. That means that your tire, regardless of what rod length you have, can only move up 20 centimeters. Now imagine the situation where you add, like, 5 centimeters of rod length, so your wheel comes back here, but regardless of that, it can still reach this point. So the bump stop up is independent of the rod length. The packer range, on the other hand, if you say I have packer so the suspension can go up 10 centimeters, that's taking into account the rod length. So if you move the rod length, you still have 10 centimeters of range available. I understand that without drawing this, it could be complicated to understand. I think Aris said that we should do something on the forum to try to explain this thing better.
Yeah, maybe give example physics file or something like that.
Yeah, eventually I think when we retire and we will have time to do something like this instead of doing 7 cars every month. Okay, so let's move on. So Giovanni Belvieri is asking, we will have custom championships in the next update. We're trying. Time is very tight, so we'll see. But that's the plan. But as you know, has been a plan for last update, and we didn't make it in time. So hopefully we can do this one. Airlock is asking, I really like this game to get even bigger, but forms this is Warlock. Hold on, this is Warlock. Warlock. So he said that for some reason Stefano is totally ignoring me. I'm not. You see, I'm not ignoring you. So I went to check the question that he gave me last week, and this is a good example of the kind of question that I sort of jump. So he's saying, about reflection, I should look at Drive Club, and I never seen Drive Club. What I know, Marco is always saying that it's awesome and blah blah blah. The only thing that I know about Drive Club is that it runs at 30 frames per second. So whatever they're doing is not something that we're interested in doing in our simulators, because for us 30 frames per second is just not good enough. So yeah, I'm sure they have some amazing tricky stuff on the reflection, but also it's important to understand that we can look at a game from now to the next 30 years. It doesn't really help to understand what kind of tricks and they managed to do. Then he's asking if I could add Xbox One and DualShock controller support. As you know, DualShock, I already know Xbox One already works with Assetto Corsa. He's specifically asking about the force feedback on the triggers, which is very cool. It's something that we have on the Xbox One build of Assetto Corsa, and it's really useful to understand what the tires are doing. It's a very nice feedback system. The bad news is that the API to drive those is not available on Windows, so even if the controller works, the X input API doesn't expose that force feedback. It doesn't even expose general force feedback. There was a Microsoft wheel for the Xbox 360 available some years ago, and I bought it, and I was expecting to be able to control the force feedback, maybe with vibration or something like that, but it never worked. So it's down to Microsoft to provide this API, and I think it's in a similar boat as Forza Motorsport is. Aris, Forza Motorsport, our parent company turned 10.
Oh yes, or kind overlords.
Yeah. And so I think they are pretty much they having the same problem right now, because direct input, which is the API that we use for the steering wheel on Assetto Corsa, is not available for Windows Store application. So that's the main reason why Forza is not supporting force feedback at the moment. And I know that because, you know, we pretty much talk with Turn 10 every day. Right, Aris? Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And then he's asking cool stuff about, you know, adding an engine and drivetrain to each axle separately, which is very cool. Super cool. And the answer is, it looks like, I don't know if he's talking about electrical engine or he's talking about the BMW i8. Do you know that?
The BMW
i8?
And yeah, then we have an electric engine, so... Yep.
Okay, so it's electric on one axle and petrol on the other axle.
Yes.
So it's similar to something that we will have to do eventually.
Exactly.
Okay. Aris has been bothering me for the last month. We should do this. Okay. So the official answer is it will come as soon we will have a car that will need this one.
Yeah.
And then quickly he's asking Simone the possibility to add animation to the track, like water, windmill, and so on. And sadly, poor Simone, he can only do what the engine allows him to do. So in this case, it's my fault. The engine doesn't allow him to do these things. So
yeah,
it's not
but
up to him.
Can I say something on that?
You can.
Yeah, you see, it's all these on design choices. I mean, yeah, it's true we can't do everything with the graphics engine, but on the other hand, you can have now like Oculus Rift going at 100 or 200 frames per second, which is pretty fantastic. So it depends in the end.
Yeah, it's always better. I think you know, things like windmills and things like that will not really hurt the frame rate that much. Yeah. But for example, if you think about adding more complex tree, that will kill the frame rate big way. So yeah, it's always a balance between.
I remember when you started on that engine, so.
Yeah, I did actually some experience. Sometimes I will have to show some ugly screenshot of you know, a system to create tree procedurally, and you know, look ugly, and it was incredibly slow. Because once you start to add foliage, it can get really slow very, very quickly. So you need to start to create a whole system. And imagine that there is a third-party framework that only does tree, and it's called Speed Tree. And that could be a possibility for the future of Assetto Corsa. So yeah, in this case, poor Simone is not responsible. It's not his fault. It's not because he's being lazy that we don't have this thing. It's my fault as usual. It's always me. Okay, so and then he's asking about adding tracks, blah blah blah. So we definitely have a couple of old tracks that old. When I mean old, I mean historical version of the tracks coming in the future. Probably next update after we do this one, something like that. Also, there is I think there is a new website coming, which will sort of give you an idea of what kind of updates to expect in the future. So we finally come up with a slightly longer plan. Okay, let's move on quickly. So Jason Holden Jones, thank you for the work, blah blah blah. Not blah blah blah. Of course, I'm happy to read this stuff, but let's go to the question. So for online playing, could we see a system introduced where, for instance, a driver cuts the track 3 times in the same corner and gets an advantage, and the said driver would receive an automatic drive-through penalty? Now, I think we discussed about this a long time on the forums, and my position on this is very negative. I really don't like the things where you are allowed to do something for a certain amount of time, because it just gives you a wild card to do an infraction on the last lap. So you say, okay, so I can do it. You know, I only cut 1 time, so it's the last lap. You know, I'm running for victory, and you know, instead of braking and hitting Hamilton, I will cut. I will cut the track.
I wonder why you bring that example here.
Yeah. Well, it was annoying actually. Did you see the race? Did you see the
Yeah,
reaction of the people
yeah,
during the podium? That was quite annoying. We were discussing on Twitter. Probably the reason is probably they didn't see the replay, or they
yes,
don't understand racing, because that's
yeah,
100% Nico's fault.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I like the guy, but yeah, when he sees Hamilton, he seems to shut down the the brain and doesn't understand anything anymore.
Yeah, of course, that should be pretty hard to get an overtake on the last lap.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 100% Nico in my opinion. But
Yes,
I
I
don't
agree.
think you can find somebody that will find. Well, the only problem with Hamilton would be like, okay, maybe what you can say, he shouldn't have tried to pass, but the guy is there
No,
to
no, I
win.
think
It's
he
not.
was perfectly clean on that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, he
At
didn't
least
take
my
any
opinion.
risk. Anyway, let's move on. So Gallo
Oops,
24.
we just spoiled the race.
Oh, sorry. Gallo 24. So you say driver swap is not in the plans for this version of AC. Is this the Riccardi 1.7 version or AC1 in general? I would say in general. It's really not something that we are thinking to do. I mean, we talk sometimes about it, and we say it a couple of times, we could do it this way or we could do it that way. I have to be totally honest with you. I don't see this happening. So I wouldn't go as far as say it's 100% impossible, but I would say it's quite unlikely. So yeah, sadly, it's one of those things that we just to put it in the same category as night and rain, and just accept the fact that it's not in the plan, and whatever. We will see in the future what happens. John Kiermaier, something like that. Is there a chance to put a pit limiter manually on and off? I think the fact that we should have the drive-through system, that opens the possibility straight away to put a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which is something that sadly it is possible in Assetto Corsa, although quite dangerous to do, but it is possible because you can still enter like a madman in the pit lane, and the system will automatically brake for you, and that's why it's dangerous, because if there is a corner there, you will just understeer a la Hamilton in, what was it, China, into the wall, something like that. So once we have that, yeah, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't have a pit limiter on and off. Again, I understand completely the immersion factor, but I really don't see it as a game breaker at all. Giuseppe Bernardi, that's very interesting. Is it possible to create an AI line for mod tracks in the 3D editing software? Now, I turn the question to Aris, because I
Yeah.
wonder if it is better to drive the AI line,
it
or
is.
would you prefer to draw it?
Well, first of all, it is already possible to draw something. I mean, not draw on the editor, but at least edit the line on the editor.
Yeah, but the interface is terrible, isn't it?
The interface is terrible, yes. For me, the perfect situation would be to be able to drive the lap, because when you're driving fast the lap, and then you understand what kind of lines you have to do on the circuit, and then you can do maybe a slower lap replicating those lines. But it would be nice to be able to do some small edits with a decent interface, a fast enough interface on the editor, because sometimes you do a perfect line, and then you see that the AI goes too much on the inside or too much on the outside, but the rest of the line is fantastic, but you have to redo it from scratch.
Yeah.
So
And if it is the Notchlife, it's like
yeah, exactly.
you want to kill yourself. Oh, there is
Do
one
it,
corner wrong.
It happened to me, as you know. So
Yeah.
it could be a nice feature to have.
I wonder if could be enough to just publish the the file format for the line, and maybe we can have some smart modder writing plugin for
Plenty
some
of
CAD
great
software.
people.
Yeah, but I can see the fascination. Imagine all those editing stuff that sometimes we do on the camber. On the camber, not the camber of the tire, the camber of the road.
Track, yeah.
Because sometimes you get the AI doing because the AI is working on one single point. Well, this code actually has been upgraded through the years in Assetto Corsa. I think right now the camber in the editor doesn't do anything. I think it's completely recalculated all the time with a new algorithm. That because the problem that was happening before was that it was taking the camber of exactly that point, and so you can imagine if that point had some bump, the camber would not really be the camber of the road, but would be the camber of that particular triangle. And so what he's doing now, the software automatically is getting the point, and then he's doing 1 meter on one side and 1 meter on the other side, taking the points and say, okay, so this is the camber of the road.
Yeah,
it's still very limited, and it's something that the AI is struggling, because sometimes you have situation like people will see in the new track, the Red Bull Ring, where you have one side of the road with camber and another side of the road without camber, or one side of the road with too much camber, and that you want to avoid. Like, what is it, T2?
T2, yeah, terrible.
T2. If you watch the race or rewatch the onboard, you will see all the guys going almost wide, like on the outside. They don't get the apex. And once you release the Red Bull Ring in Assetto Corsa, you will understand why.
By the way, Stefano, I have now proof that they are some of those guys were lifting the rear inside the.
Yeah, I saw it as well. At T3, I think.
At T2.
T2 as well. But also the T3, there's the long one. I saw a lot of weird things there with tires.
Yeah.
we were. I was bothering Aris. Oh, this car is always on 3 wheels. It's you will see the track is particular. So it's got that corner where you really want to go on the outside and not cut it. Interesting corner. Anyway, let's move on. So Fets and Pluckers, when I save replays, they have random number of laps in them, sometimes lots, sometimes only a few. That's almost true. They are not random. They depend on the track. So of course, if you have a very long track with a very slow car, you will have less laps available. The replay system works with a memory assumption. So you tell the replay system, I want to use this amount of memory for the replay. And then depending on how many cars you have and what track you are, the number of laps that you can memorize will actually change. You also have settings for the quality of a replay, which brings down the frequency at which the replay gets recorded. And this is the situation. It's not going to change in Assetto Corsa at all. So, try to make it work for you. Finally, Leonardo Ratafia is asking us to have a quick look at the change log. Up now, it's very, 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 very provisional. So I won't really go into the points. I think you guys can just screenshot this and talk over it on the forums and whatever, some of these might disappear, and there are lots of stuff more happening. So from what I see, the thing that could be interesting, really interesting for us, it's all stuff that I really talk already. Anyway, there you go. This is the changelog at the moment. So this is the question for today. So before moving into talking a little bit with Aris, let me just congratulate Germany for finally beating Italy in an official competition in football. Well done, Germany. You didn't beat us. I mean, it was just penalty, but
You are so bitter.
yeah, but yeah.
On the other hand, I have to say hello to our new overlords. And
Who is that? What's that? Yeah. So last night was
Shameless plug.
pretty late for all of us. I'm very sleepy. Anyway, let's move on. So Aris. So
Yeah.
for people that don't know Aris, as Simone is like the track man in Assetto Corsa, Aris is the physics guy in Assetto Corsa. He basically did the physics of every single car in Assetto Corsa, which is how many cars right now? 107.
Lost count. We are now over 100 probably.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
and
Who
it
would
was.
have thought? Yeah.
So in your words, because people sometimes, of course, they're not part of a development team, so they sometimes wonder, what the hell does it mean, the word physics integrator that we use. What does it mean?
Well, it's all down to those, three fingers. You have to have excellent control, so you can press the control key and the C key and the V key, so you can do excellent copy paste to do the physics. But yeah, to say it as simple as possible, it means that I get all the data from the real cars, the manufacturer data, or feedback from the engineers and the drivers, and then I try to translate all those data into values so I can feed them in your physics engine practically. So the physics engine is made by Stefano, and he gives me then the possibility to add values to this physics engine so that the cars replicate the reality. So that's it, mainly. Specifically, the difficulties come from the fact that you need to gather all this data. You need sometimes to, you have the data, but you can't simulate them exactly, so you need to get the exact results that data give. Sometimes you don't get all the data and you have to do some kind of reverse engineering because, for example, you have a telemetry of the car and you have a set of data, but not the whole set of data. And so you put what you have inside, you log them, and then with the rest that is remaining, you try to get as close as possible to the telemetry of the real car. And so on. That's mainly my job is to make the cars handle as close to reality as possible. That's it.
And the other important fact when it comes to these things is the fact that you have to do these things on a deadline. So it's not something you can do. Of course, once a car gets released on Assetto Corsa, there is always tweaking on the cars. If we get new data, or if we change something in the physics engine that needs to get then changes for the other car. But the difficult part, like in the situation like we are now, we can talk about the SF15, which is as you guys know, it's today's Formula One are so complicated from a point of view that has nothing to do with car dynamics, but is the amount of electronic system that they have, and all this electronic recovery system, energy recovery system. It's difficult because of course from a certain point of view there is secrecy, so really you don't have lots of example to work with. There are description of the system, but they can be sometimes vague or contradict themselves sometimes, so it's complicated, and it's I don't know but I think it's the same for you. I mean, for me it's a learning experience, because it's not really, I mean, we got things like suspension geometry and things like that covered and sorted by now. So when we have to do a car like the traditional car, it's quite easy, but now we have all these new things to learn, and when you have 1 month to do it, it's like crazy. It's like totally crazy.
Yeah, the good thing with the Assetto Corsa is that it's ever evolving, and fortunately we also have the possibility to at any time when we have something new that we can add on a car that we know it should be there, we can still update it at any point and make the car even better, which is great. But yeah, you get plenty of situations where, I mean, we even got situations where we have the actual real data, and the engineer, which you have a great relationship with, and he trusts you and tells you, this is how it should work, but please don't put it in the game as it is. And you say, oh, and how do I do that? And he says, I don't know, find a way to do the result, but not put the actual values in. And you're still there you're thinking, oh, what should I do? Yeah, on some situations it's a hard job. It's a dream job, but it is hard. Also because we have a community which is so passionate about it, and those guys get real loud about it, and in the end we are the same as the users, because we started as them.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the fact that we have deadlines. As simple as that,
I mean, you have some great guys out there doing modes and physics and whatever, and they come up with some fantastic, interesting data, or they found out, they can find bugs or something, and they complain about it, but they don't realize that they had maybe a month or 2 months to find out and explore that thing, while in the meantime we had to do like 20 cars, So that's the main issue, and it's still it's great on Assetto Corsa, because I can imagine people like me working on other software titles where they have thousands of cars to do, and I'm pretty sure they have the same passion, but they don't have the amount of time to do them.
It's like at the beginning you tend to I think it was the same for us. I mean, when we were working back, with yourself with mods or myself with Netcar, and there are things that you don't understand, and you say, oh, this company, they don't care about their product, but I mean, it's not a justification at the end of the day. I mean, the one thing that I think our problem is that we want to keep control of what we're doing. So in a way, me and you, we tend to be a bit jealous somehow of our work. Like, I want to do the physics, as far as the code is concerned, and you want to do the physics on the car. And as a product, I want a product to reflect the fact that is the result of a coherent team that is doing stuff, while of course you could hire other 2 or 3 physics guy and get more care in a car. So yeah, it's difficult, and of course it comes down to the fact that sim racing, regardless of what people think in sim racing, is not really a popular genre. So sometimes it comes down to budget. You simply cannot afford to have 3 physics guys, and it's simply not possible, provided that you can find three physics guys that have the profile that Aris has, which people sometimes also follow you on YouTube. They saw your videos driving a real car. You're not just a guy that is sitting there putting numbers. You also bring in an experience of real racing, not racing, but real driving.
Yeah, I think I think out there are guys that are even better than me in terms of engineering knowledge. I have my advantages in terms of feeling and maybe trying to translate that feeling into actual numbers. The main issue, also to answer to a probable question of some guys that might think, okay, don't do 20 cars, do 2 cars instead.
Exactly.
The main issue is that we are obviously into a competitive ambient, and to keep Assetto Corsa alive, we have to bring new cars. It might not be an easy concept from people that just play a game to understand, but Kunos is getting bigger. You have to bring the money in, and you have to do it with maintaining the simulation aspect as much as possible. But the thing is that you have time restraints, and so when you are like that, you need a team that works really well. It's like a well-oiled engine. So it's not as easy as to say, okay, just bring 2 or 3 guys in to do it. Those 2 or 3 guys needs to be first of all linked with the rest of the team. They need time. They need time to learn the engine. They need time to understand our philosophy of how a car should work, because you can get engineers that
they don't agree. They fight on what's important and what's not important. I mean, we're talking about real race engineers, and they fight on what the camber should be, or what the effect of camber on this and that. I talked to 10 race engineers. They tell me 10 different things. One guy tell me, I don't know, you use the camber to make sure that you put the patch with more temperature on the ground, and another guy is saying use the camber because you want to use the camber thrust, and the other guy use the camber because you want to spread the load and the temperature. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all right.
Yes.
It's just a matter of what they think it's more important to the behavior of the car. Is not an exact science. Otherwise, Formula One cars that have teams of I don't know how many, but easily into the 150 probably working on a car. They will end up with the same cars. Yes. We will have 26 cars starting a race, and they will be exactly the same, and they will be exactly optimal. But it doesn't work like that. It's not simple like that. There are things that you cannot predict. Another interesting thing that I see sometimes on the forum, and I find it hilarious, is the concept of, is this a simulation? No, it's not a simulation, it's in cadence. I always find, a little bit, I don't know about you, I find it a bit weird. I mean, by definition, a simulation is something that is trying to reproduce reality. But that also means that it's an impossible target, isn't it? Reality will always be more complicated than whatever formula you can write. Also because at a certain point you get to a level of reality that we don't understand fully yet, and that's beyond tires. You go into subatomic physics, and you start to get, so by definition you will never be able to have 100% simulation. It's just a matter of where you put this cut, where below this level is not simulation, above this level is simulation. But doesn't make sense to me, honestly. I really don't understand how you can take a title and say this is not a simulation. I'm guilty of that. I had an interview when we did the event for the launch of Assetto Corsa on the console, and people asked me about Gran Turismo, and I was like, Gran Turismo is not a simulation. I was like, Stupid. What does it mean it's not a simulation? Of course, it's a simulation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
It's yeah. I think I found it in when it is towards us. I found it offensive, to be honest. But I tend to ignore it because I see it like an argumentation from people trying to look only what they want, because if you say that Assetto Corsa, for example, is Simcade and simulation X is real simulation, then you are not measuring everything, because we know we have some things that other simulators don't, and we know we are missing maybe some things that other simulators have. So as you can see, each team tries to push their advantages, push their points that they know they are better.
their skills, their talent.
Skills,
I mean,
yeah.
there are things that I don't like to name other products, but you can see with our products. You can see with the history of Netcar and then Ferrari Virtual Academy and then Assetto Corsa, they're just bringing a concept of, it's very clear if you look at our product what we are good at and what we are not that good at. So we're not very good at creating a game, probably, when it comes to things like making everything that revolves around a race, or making it a game. We're not very good, and in fact our two previous products were not even game from that point of view, if you think about it. At the end you see the line. You see we tend to have a very light graphic engine that does good graphics with good performance. So good 3D modeling in general, and very pleasant physics to drive. And those are the common factor that you because the team is the same and the team is going to keep doing those things, because those are the skill of the team. And maybe our competitor, have different skills in other parts, and maybe they're not as good as us in other parts. It's totally absolutely normal when it comes to that. So the question that I also asked to Simone the other stream, what were you doing before Kunos Simulazioni?
Before Kuno Simulazioni, well, should we go before for Ferrari Virtual Academy or before Netcar?
Yeah, I mean, just like with Simone, I think with Aris we go even more back than Simone.
Yeah.
I think Aris was probably the first, if not the second guy that when the very first demo of Netcar, the free version came out, sort of started to get involved and engaged into, giving feedback and, participating into the, not really directly into the development, but, so we go, so go even before that. How did you discover sim racing?
Well, sim racing for me starts back into the era of Spectrum and Amstrad and Commodore 64 with games like Revs and stuff like that, because I always had this extreme passion for racing, for driving actually. Racing, yes, but driving is what drives me. And after that, I remember I saw Grand Prix from Microprose on Amiga, and I was like, wow, incredible stuff. And then I found out Papyrus, right, with IndyCar racing and Grand Prix Legends. And with Grand Prix Legends is where I think everything changed, because it permits us to start doing multiplayer, and this is where the first communities created here in Italy. And from then on, I was pretty competitive. I was racing hard, and there was that community portal called the Driving Italia back then, .com back then.
Yeah.
who was it, Marco that puts it together, or
Yeah, it was
Trudy?
Marco and Simone and Luca,
Yeah.
Simone and Nicola
So
and
yeah,
Luca Casarotto. Yeah.
so that strange guy comes along into the forum and says, in his typical, uh, way of expressing things, says, "Well, you know what? I don't think that the current simulators are good enough, and I think it could be done better." And we were like, "Yeah, yeah, bring it on." And I have a simulator which some of you might want to try. And I think Marco told me, "Would you like to try this?" And I said, "Yeah, well, why not?" And I tried the first version of Netcar, right? It was,
Yeah.
what was it, an alpha version or something
Oh,
like
it
that?
was like pre-alpha.
Pre-alpha, yeah. And I tried it. I was like, "Wow, what is that?" I mean, what is that? It was really a revelation back then, because it has the same feeling of Grand Prix Legends, but at the same time, it was more connected to the road. If you guys have ever tried Grand Prix Legends, you might remember that it's quite slidey. It was great, but very slidey. And Netcar was almost as great, but it was connected. It wasn't sliding if you didn't want to slide. And so I started talking with Stefano, and we started. I wouldn't say collaborating, because he was doing everything as usual, and I didn't have all the experience that I have now, and neither all the knowledge, but I was pretty good on doing setups and understanding what the car was doing. In fact, I was doing setups for the biggest Italian team back in the days. And yeah, we were talking about and how I was feeling the cars and so on. And then we kept doing things together until the end of Netcar.
Which
And
was when I went to Japan and I left you
yes,
with a build that didn't work.
yeah. You had to go to Japan, and we had to release the final version of Netcar, which was pretty great. But the file that Stefano left us, and he didn't have any internet connection when he went to Japan for the first days or months or weeks, I don't remember, wasn't working anymore. And so we had to hack our way around his files and find a solution, and we managed to pull out the latest version of Netcar.
Which people that listen say, oh my god, it's so crazy to live like that. But literally I remember that I had the guys from the moving company. Actually, it was not a moving company, it was a colleague of mine that
Yeah.
because I was leaving all my furniture and computer, everything to him, because I was just moving to Japan, so I wasn't bringing anything. So literally he came and he was packing the stuff from my house and put it into this truck. And the last thing that was left was the desk with the computer, because I was online with you trying to give you a build. So then I sent you this build, and literally, I sent this build, and this guy, unplugged the computer. And
Oh,
so it's like, crazy story when you think about
great
this
stuff.
thing, after so many years, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
And then,
how did you get into really creating stuff? Was it with the Power and Glory thing?
no, actually, I did some more stuff before that. I did the infamous NAP mode for the GTR2, which the author was unknown, because I didn't want to, mess around with the community. So I said, okay, I'll do this for the guys that want it, but I would stay unknown. And so nobody knew back then who did it, but yeah, I did that. But the main thing is that, I always, I had this extreme interest of how cars work and what makes them go faster. And so I kept studying and trying things and asking things and trying to get better on that. And one thing I'd like to say about it, because everyone has its story. Then I did the Power and Glory mode, as you said, which, for example, that's a great example of, I think, a great mode, but had no time limits because we did what 3 or 4 years to finish it, and we didn't care really. Which obviously, in terms of professional work, we would be doomed. But when you are molding, you have no problems to do something like that. And what I'd like to say about all this story of mine of doing things is that the things I knew back into early 2000, late 2000, 2010, and so on, are completely different from what I know now. And the things I was absolutely certain that they work that way back then are completely different from what I believe right now. And I'm pretty sure that if you ask me the same question after maybe 10 years, I will again have a different opinion on how things work. And that's because physics and handling and tires and aerodynamics are so complex, things to study and learn, that you keep learning and learning, and your absolute beliefs keep changing with time. So sometimes we have some guys that come to the forums and say, I found this documentation. They show you some kind of paper from,
from the 80s.
From the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
And so you see that this is science, and we have the proof here that the thing should be that way. And you look at it and you say, yeah, and you want to reply, and people might think that you're not replying because you're arrogant or because you are ignorant or because you don't care or whatever. But the truth is that we've been there, we've done that, and now we know there's a different situation. And sometimes we can explain why there is a different situation, sometimes we can't, because some kind of engineer or some kind of paper that we have found, we want to keep it for ourselves, or there are some engineers that tell you, don't say that, outside.
Yeah.
So what can you do?
Yeah.
You keep learning, and you keep getting better, and you do obviously errors.
Absolutely. Okay, so guys from the chat, first of all, I want to say hello to Andreas Cognamiglio, the great guitarist. Yeah, he said, "Oh, the Shadow Man is here." Actually, I was talking about him 1 hour ago with Simone in the chat, and I was like, I can't believe the guy's been 20 years and all he talks about is shadows. So, ciao Andrea. Okay, so prepare your question for Aris, and I will start. Yeah, Aris goes to the toilet or whatever. So I wanted to show you what, in my opinion, is the best car in Assetto Corsa, which is the one car from the new DLC that will come in a couple of weeks now. So we don't have much time to work on this. Aris left, and so no, come on, let's be lucky and get a better skin than this one. This car has amazing skins. I'm showing the Maserati Aris.
Okay.
I'm just going for a quick lap in Spa, just so people understand, what kind of handling they have to expect from this.
Oh God! Remember, guys, brake early,
yes.
2 laps before where you want to brake.
At the end of the day, if you think about it, it's not really a difficult car. Once you get your brain around the idea that you need to go much slower than you think through the corners, it's not really a difficult car, because everything that happens is very slow. Very slow. I think, I don't want to say it because I'm sure that it's going to happen in this street. I never spun this car yet.
Take off some of the ups. It's better than that.
But yeah, because basically everything is happening really, really slow.
Yeah.
You saw there where I go. See, I almost spun this. You saw where I started to brake in Spa. Still, I ended up long in the corner, the car really doesn't. I don't think it even locks the car. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
But, you know, you really need to do it on purpose. You know, these brakes are not 2016 brakes. You know, braking distance is much longer. But what I find interesting in this is that because you are not really braking, you know, to the maximum limit of the tires. It's interesting because when you're racing it, you have these huge, very long braking zones, but you can still move with the car. You know, it's not, you know, that you commit to a line and there you go. You know, that's your line, and you have to stay to that line for 200 meters of braking zone. You can actually move because you still have tires available to move around with the car. And then of course when you go back on the throttle, it immediately goes and starts to slide. But you see, it happens so slowly that, you know, there's plenty of time to react. And also compared to the other cars, this is actually the way you drive it to be fast. You know, it's not something that, you know, of course you don't want to get, you know, 40 degrees sideways. You need to use a little bit of sliding to get fast from the corner. In my opinion, you know, this is definitely the best car. I know that people will not agree on this one.
People, yeah, they telling me that you have some problem with your sound volume.
Okay.
So
So
maybe
they
you
don't
want-
hear me or they don't hear the car?
I think they don't hear you very well, probably.
Okay, so probably
And in-game sound is too loud. They tell me.
even lower this one. But anyway, we saw a little bit of video of this. Definitely next week I will go through a lot of driving, so I can show you more about the new content that is coming for 1.7. So we are 1 hour through the stream, so let's go with the questions. You can read the chat, Aris.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is one guy that, you know, I just let you do it this time. So
Oh, really?
yeah, because there is guy asking about, you know, fatiguing brakes and opening brake ducts.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not a big issue. It's just an issue of time to do everything. And as usual, with new feature, we will go with steps. So the first step is to have the brake temperature working properly as possible. And then we will have to do this at least with a couple of cars. And then we will do this for all the cars that they are already present. So expect different updates into the following months. And then once we have this working, we will start to make the effects stronger. So for example, if you have brake frayed, you will feel it even more. And then we, at the same time, we will add maybe, you know, brake ducts or something like this, right, Stefano?
Yeah, that's the plan, to take it step by step. I think the first thing that they can expect from this version, from the cars that will have brake temperature, is a different feel in the brake. So you get it to a more realistic braking, where you sort of go on the pedal very aggressive because you want the temperature to, you know, to go up as soon as possible. While sometimes in Assetto Corsa right now, I think going very aggressive on the brakes is still not, you know, still not the best way to brake, because the reaction is instant. So you don't get that sort of natural fade in, if you want, of the braking force that you get with the temperature build up. So in real racing, you see a very aggressive brakings that, you know, in sim racing seems to be, you know, a bit more. We're talking about really less than tenths of a second, but you know,
Yes.
you still don't see that bang You still want to control the brakes. So yeah. So let's go on. So let's get this one. Aris, how many people did you almost strangle to get you the data you need?
Many people. Many people. I have a place where I put dead people in. So
Overt is asking all this, crazy question. Will air temperature and dirty air influence brake cooling? Of course, air temp will.
Yes, obviously.
Dirty air.
Don't have that yet. I would prefer to have dirty air on the wings first and then think about the brakes.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, on the wings, not in terms of when you are slipstreaming someone, which already works, but when you have a wing in front and you put it at an angle that breaks the air flow to the rear wing, something like that. It's as always, it's a matter of there are tons of things that you can do, tons literally, and you have to do a compromise to whatever you think it would have a bigger influence to the way how people drive. In my opinion, modern brakes do not have as big issues, in driving. And if they have it, then that means that some engineer hasn't done his work properly, and he has to redo his work to make it work as properly as it should, at least in modern racing. So for me, it's something, having dirty air from a wing to another wing is something that is more important than having dirty air provoking, brake fade. Yeah, maybe in Formula One it's more important, but in normal racing, not really.
Also because I don't know. So those things that are very difficult. Also, the other difficult thing with those stuff is, I mean, where even you find the data to validate your things. It's even things like slipstreams are incredibly rare. I think I saw a couple of papers talking about NASCAR that give some ideas of what kind of numbers you can expect from things like drafting and slipstream, but I would be surprised to find
that they have rules specific to aid slipstreaming on that kind of races.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then you have cars like Formula One that they are doing specifically wings and aerodynamic devices to disrupt the wing, the airflow behind the car to make slipstreaming more difficult for the ones that they follow. So go figure what really happens.
Yeah. So you end up really with lots of stuff. Aris, tell us something about your Le Mans weekend.
Amazing. Oh, that was amazing, guys. That was
while we were working and you and Marco were having fun. It's always you and Marco, isn't it? Going for
that's not true, and No, to be honest, it was a very stressful weekend because we had lots of adrenaline for the announcement. We were trying to prepare the announcement, and when you are not behind your monitor on your desk and you are somewhere else, and you have to keep the public relations with the Porsche guys, and at the same time trying to prepare the announcement, and you have all this excitement because obviously everything was very exciting. You have all the adrenaline pumping, and it keeps you very alive, And then everything finished. The whole weekend was amazing, and we got the car to get back to the airport. And believe me, guys, I was as usual driving, and I was about to sleep while driving. I mean, we were so tired and exhausted, not in terms of physical exhaust, but mental and psychological exhaust. That when everything finished, everything was over. we just felt so tired from all that stuff, and but it was amazing. It was really an amazing weekend. Amazing weekend.
Tobbe Bergman is asking, Aris, where is the info at which RPM the gear number goes red in each car? We had a fight with Marco 3 days ago about this. There isn't.
There isn't.
There isn't, but there will be, because, well, I'm trying to do a system where we don't have to add a parameter, and is try to look either for the limiter or the RPM where the engine is started to get damage. You spot me when I was trying the Maserati, and the Maserati is a car where how is the story there, Aris? They didn't really have RPM limiters, or they were not reliable?
Both. Sometimes they didn't have the RPM limiter, and sometimes they have some limiters that they are very slow to cut the engine because they're not electronic but they are mechanical, and so you simply go over the rev limit. Even if you have the rev limiter, you go over it and you can damage the engine.
Yeah, so basically we are trying to replicate that situation, and of course the entire user interface is assuming that the limiter RPM is also the limit after which the engine is started to get damage, and we are in the situation where that's not true for the Maserati, and so we are trying to work out a system so the user interface is actually giving you the right information, and it gets red when you are supposed to change. And another something particular, but we are not going to do anything about it, and you will have to look at the LED on the car, is the cars like the Ferrari SF15, like the 458, and basically you are they have a much wider range of RPM available, but you are required the optimal shift position is way before that. So on the Ferrari you will change at 12,000, something like that, isn't it, Aris?
Yeah,
12,000, but the engine goes up to 14 or something like that.
15,000, but you have to change gear at around 11.
Yeah, so if you look at the user interface, will show you that you have more RPM available before you start giving either hitting the limiter or giving damage to the car. But you have to look at the LED to know where you're actually changing. So yeah, it's complicated when you start to have all this thing. I think it's much easier. In a situation we would just put the limiter on the Maserati and call it a day, but we are trying to do it properly. Let's see. Aris Stefano, we will get brake grow relevant to the temperature or brake disc. I don't know because I really don't know it makes any sense to rework colors to match temperatures. That will be arbitrary anyway, so I don't know. I doubt that it will be the case. I think it's the graphic side is doing what it has to do, and also you can imagine in multiplayer you really don't want to start to broadcast brake temperatures around, so definitely not. Will the SF15 have adjustable gears? It doesn't.
No.
It's locked like
yes.
in real life. Actually, something interesting about gear, I still don't know what's your final decision in there. Well, we were talking about the Maserati, and it has a very long first gear that some people might think it's a bug, but it's not a bug. And what was the reason why they had this very long first gear?
They get first gear gets so much torque, and if they would put a smaller gear and a shorter one, it would simply break. And we're talking obviously 1954 year, so you can understand that fatigue, mechanical fatigue, and issues with designing gearboxes would prevent them to have a shorter first gear. Yeah. And actually, the car got out with a four gears at the start, and then later, at I think around 56 or 57, they've managed to put a 5-gear gearbox into the car, especially for the V12 engine. And the only thing that was different in that, it was that they could actually put a shorter first gear. So the 5th gear wasn't actually the longer gear. I mean, gears from 2nd to 3rd remained the same, but they could add a shorter first gear to start the car faster. So yes, we will have different gear ratios on the Maserati, but don't expect on the 4-gear gearbox to have a very short first gear. You will always have that problem.
Yeah. Another guy, sorry, I lost your name in the chat because I saw the question, but it's gone now. And they were asking what was the car that was most difficult to find data of the one that we did in Assetto Corsa. I think a lot, but probably the old cars, all the old cars, probably.
Yes and no, because old cars, it's true that you have some difficulties to find data, but they don't have as advanced systems. So in the end, once you found the suspension geometry and a couple of setup sheets, it's done. I think obviously Formula One is difficult, and yeah, very modern cars, race cars are always difficult to find all the data that you need.
And also because some of them rely so much on electronic controls.
Yeah.
Thinking about La Ferrari, the Aventador, there are lots of questions on the Aventador.
Yes.
They're asking, for example, on the Aventador, they saw your video. They're asking, where your real life driving skill come from. You drive like Chris Aris.
Where my real life. Well, I'll say something, and I don't know if people will believe me, but it really comes from the simulators. Because I've never had, as much time driving real cars as I would wish, as everybody, because as you know, it is a pretty expensive sport. I do have my fair amount of real life driving before Assetto Corsa, so I have some experience. But the thing is that with cars, for example, as the Aventador, if you guys have seen the video, which I did some pretty, I'm pretty proud. I did some pretty extreme things with that car. The thing is that I could do those things in after 4 laps of testing. And Maurizio was like, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" And the thing is that I do not depend too much on feel of the car, of what your bottom tells you. If you ask all professional drivers how to drive the cars, is I can feel it through my bottom or through my back, what the car does, and then I react. I drive a lot based on what I see, as we do on the simulators. And when you drive like that, often I push the car to do things that a normal driver usually stops and says, "No, the car is going to slide badly, so I won't go over there." But I have some kind of muscle memory from the simulators, which helped me to understand when the car really goes over the limit, I know where it's going to end, and when I know where it's going to finish its sliding, it helps me to overcome the fear and keep pushing and see what I can do to not end where the sliding push me, but to do something else. So I think in that specific situation, driving over the limit, sim racing, at least for me, it was a big help. Big help.
Good. Let me. I lost a couple of questions. That there is a. Oh my God! I can never pronounce your name. Myongji Seo. Is asking if we plan to change the pit system because we have the Formula One. So of course, pit stop in Formula One right now are like 2 seconds, 3 seconds to change tires. Of course, our system doesn't work. I mean, if we change the pit system, is not because of the Formula One. I think it's still important to understand that although we are getting an SF15, this is still Assetto Corsa. I mean, it's not a Formula One game. So, we are trying. We are working very hard. I'm going to try to work again on the DRS rule system that allow us to have race where in the race you can only use DRS like it happened in Formula One. But if you remember, when I was in the Philippines, I tried that already and it failed because it was a bit messy, the code. So it's very important to understand, okay, we're getting this car, but it's not that Assetto Corsa is not going to turn into an F1 simulator in 1 month, sadly. It's still a generic simulator, and we have to live with that. It will be, I think, unrealistic to expect us to turn into an F1 simulator, sadly. Same thing with the energy recovery system. Me and Aris, we are trying to do our best to put whatever we can understand into the system, and hopefully we will go. I will go through that. Next week I will have time to talk and understand. And next week is going to be very close to the release, so it's going to be pretty much what you guys will get. So I will also have because if you ask us today, our answer is still we don't know what we'll be able really to put inside the game, because as usual, you can put a lot of complicated stuff, but then all the problems start to open up, like, okay, so what the artificial intelligence is going to do about this? How the hell, you expect the artificial intelligence to work out, what to do with the recovery system and a certain part of the race. So it can get messy pretty quickly. So sadly. And if there is an update to DirectX 12, absolutely not. No plans at all about that. Are we planning to change to IEBIS 3? IEBIS 3 is exactly the same as IEBIS 2, so there is no substantial difference between the two. We are using IEBIS 3 on the console, I think. So there is no reason why we shouldn't update on the PC, but don't expect anything to change. Let's see. Aris, if you see some question that you would like to answer to, you go on.
Yeah, I would like to answer a question about default setups. They asked if we should change default setups. Mm-hmm. So if you're fine with that. One thing I have to point out is that, first of all, street cars have default setups that they are as close to realistic as possible. So we are not going to change that. In terms of, street cars are trying to be as safe as possible before being fun or racy. Hopefully, we have a couple of clicks into the setup screen, you can change the behavior pretty much and do whatever you like with them. So maximum front negative camber, and you're ready to go, because that is all they need, honestly. And by maximum, I don't mean that like that's a cheat on the physics engine. It's how if you have maximum negative camber of 2.5 degrees, it's still not enough. I mean, racing cars use 3.5, so put them on maximum and have fun. For racing cars, we also try to have as close to default setup from the real car as possible. depending on the data we have. But there's something else to consider, that I can make whatever setup you want for a race car, okay? But the fact is that a driver that does a lap time with a race car and another driver that does 2 seconds slower lap time with the same race car, or 1 second or 3 seconds slower, with the same setup, they drive 2 completely different cars and they need different setups. So you can't get out from this thing. If I change the default setups on the race car, we will have half of the people happy and then the other half terribly upset because they won't like it anymore. So, race cars have setups, not always to go faster, but usually to make the driver happier to go faster, to push the limit. So it's up to you guys to understand and change the setup in a way that helps you out. And I understand that you might not feel, or you might don't want to be a race engineer to change your setup, but it's all part of the of sim racing. You have to do all the jobs in sim racing alone.
Yeah, that's one thing that makes sims racing more difficult than
Yes.
real life.
Yes.
When people are talking about brake ducts for the the air intake for the brake cooling and things like that, realistically, is not really something that Hamilton, Rosberg, or Kimi care about. They don't go there and go like, okay, so this race we will race, with this 5 centimeter opening on the brakes, because otherwise on the lap 35 I will run out of brakes. That's not absolutely part of their brain. They just go on the track and they race as fast as the engineers tell them to. And so in sim racing, sometimes you get bombarded of this information. This is one thing that I really don't like about the brake issue, because I feel like it's grinding. It's nothing more than grinding. It's nothing more than, okay, I have a race, so I practice and I do a 50 lap stint on this track to see if the brake are okay, and if they are not okay, I will open a little bit I mean, where is the ability there? There is no ability. It's just a matter of how much time you're willing to put into grinding. It is not really something that would make me excited about a race game. But this is totally my opinion. It doesn't mean that we are not going to do it, but
But it shows the different opinions on that, on everything that goes around set up a car handling.
Yeah. Because it's no engineer will send you out with a car that will finish the brake in 10 laps if you are supposed to do 60 laps. So it's not really your problem. It's not really your problem. I understand that there could be some differences in the way drivers drive. There were some drivers, I remember, that wanted bigger brakes, but I also suppose the feel of the brake can change with the diameter or whatever, and so the driver saying might come into the equation, but realistically it doesn't work like that. An engineer will make the call based on simulation and previous experience on that race, and the driver will just get it and go on and race the car and hope everything will be okay. That's how it works. So sim racing is just putting all this layer and require you to understand. I was talking with Aris about the distance-based settings. I started to get all excited. Oh, we can do active suspension where you can choose, okay, so in this part of the track you put the car low, on this part of the track you put the car high. But then, you think about it, and I mean, when Jean Alesi or whoever was racing those cars, they were not really, involved in that at at all. It was the engineers that was doing all this. It's not really the driver. So of course you want to make a deep simulation, but you know it's very difficult to balance it with the game part. You know, that's the difficult part. Anyway, enough rant about this. Let's get to the last couple of questions that you are almost 1 hour and a half out. Are we gonna? They saw the tire version 10. They saw the tire version 10. Okay, so the story behind the tire version 10 is that it's designed to be. Originally, my hope was to create just something that I could swap without Aris and Luca, which are, you know, the official test drivers for Assetto Corsa, even noticing it, because I wanted just to move around the code and write a different system that allowed me to. The first reason was to have a system that allowed me to create an editor that gives us a better view of what the tire is doing, which is something that at the moment is missing in Assetto Corsa, and sometimes we pay the price for not being able to see very well what the tire is doing. The other main reason is that I discovered a paper, well, not really, it's an old paper, and there was a comparison between different tire models, and there is something funny about tires. You know, one of the other, you know, 1,000 things that make tires funny is that you would imagine that the tire to develop a force which is collinear, means is on the same line with the direction where the tire is sliding. And when I mean sliding, I mean both lateral and longitudinal sliding. So you imagine this tire sliding in one direction, and it's creating a force exactly the opposite to the direction where it's sliding. It turns out that tires are funny things, and it is not the case. And that was something that the Assetto Corsa traditional tire model was doing. So the resultant force was always collinear with the sliding vector. And so it turns out that's not the case, and this is something that the V10 can do and does. So the resultant force is not really collinear, but somehow it tends to align more with the longitudinal side of the tire. And so when I did the V10 for the first time, I did my usual things where I told Aris and Luca, you know, I didn't tell them anything. You know, I didn't tell them what I've changed or if I changed something. And I said, you know, can you try and tell me how it feels, the car?
He always does those nice jokes with us.
Yeah, and you know, my hope was to get an answer like, oh, nothing has changed. But, you know, literally Aris after, you know, 4 corners, oh, it's different. So yes, that's the story behind V10. Is I think it's yet another evolution of our tire model. It also got a parameter to control. Oh my God, getting too technical, but basically it's controlling the balance between the combination of the force between lateral and longitudinal, so you can sort of move the points where the longitudinal is getting the peak, and that as a result on the lateral, how much lateral force you lose when you're accelerating or braking. That's to make it very, very simple. As usual, it's very difficult to talk about this thing without graphs, but there you go. So yes, we will have a tire model. Why we skipped number 8 and 9? Because we thought it was very different. So we just wanted to make clear it's not a direct evolution of the 7, is a totally different approach. So,
especially on the code part, because the end, the feeling is subtle changes if you work with the numbers, but on the code part and the fact that you can see what the graphs are.
Yeah, and literally it's like a different block of code. It's like, you know, at a certain point there is a big if the version is 7, call this function. If it is 10 call this other function, while usually the way we did it was we were adding parameters to the tire model, and usually what we did, we put a default parameter or a 0 if 0 was acceptable for old version of the tire model, and the new version just add the possibility to add that number. But at the end, Aris, the tire model gets exactly the same input plus one value. It's not really that different. It's just how the forces are combining that require, generally speaking, I think it requires more longitudinal grip, isn't it? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
which is is right, is what we see from experimental data. So there you go. Okay.
Jim and Maxwell asks about the human
he found your video.
We have to say that we have some casualties, and so we abandoned the idea.
Okay. Is there a question that you get asked so much it makes you all want to go on a murderous rampage? I think for me it has to be the very classic, rain and night. I don't. What's the question that it gets you worked on?
But to be honest, I don't have one specific. I'm annoyed by people that they are not polite. They're just asking without being polite, without being. No, I want that. Do this. Do that. I mean, take it easy.
Yeah.
Because we have proven that we do listen and work as hard as we can to improve things that they are get pointed to us. But it's not like you can program or you can create things like this whenever it's being pointed at you. You need time. You need. You have priorities. But we do it in the end.
Sometimes you have technical. You have skills limitation. I mean,
yes, it's normal. I mean, we are humans, and so.
I spend. There are a couple of things in Assetto Corsa that I would love to get better, like artificial intelligence, netcode in general, where I still although I think we are in a stage where we are looking at some Italian championship. We watch the stream. We enjoy watching the stream of the race. We are at a point where the multiplayer, as far as movement of the cars, is in a good stage, but compared to our competitors, we still have catching up to do, and sadly, it's not something. The will to do it and the time you put it is not enough. It's not enough to guarantee you a result, and at a certain point, it really comes down to limitation. If you don't understand how that thing is working, there's nothing you can do, other than throw yourself, your head into the wall. I mean, lately, I'm working on the AI, and that usually means cursing, very loud cursing around the house. Where the AI doesn't do what I expect to do it.
He also gets nervous with us guys. I can't tell you about it. It's terrible.
Yeah, sometimes the guys pay the price when I have to interact with them after a day of cursing the AI. So yeah, I think it comes down. It's not just sometimes it's not just how much work you put into it. There are things that. You could be good in one thing and maybe not be that good in that other thing, and definitely I think we try to put all the effort we can, but it's not possible to do everything. Tobbase keep asking Aris what is your favorite Assetto Corsa car, so tell him. So it stops.
Oh, that's a terrible question for me because I can't, for the love of me, I can't decide. It's impossible for me to decide. Every time I will get in love with how one car handles or what kind of technology a car has or how it is done. It is impossible. I used to really like the Lotus Evora back in the time. Then I've changed that, and I really like the RX-7 lately. Really nice handling. I like that. And the Maserati is fantastic, but I don't like the braking, for example. Yeah, every time I have a new one, and if you ask me, half an hour after that, I would change my mind. It's impossible. I like them, all of them.
And it's sometimes strange. We have so many cars that this morning we were doing the force feedback calibration thing.
Yeah.
And which basically what it is, it's we have a system where you basically have to do like 4 or 5 laps, it depends on the car, around Vallelunga short. So they're sort of short laps if you don't have to use the 595, which I was unlucky to get that one. And it's interesting. So we sort of divide the cars to each other, and we just do it together, because it's not that you have to drive fast, you just need to do it. So we usually do it while on Skype talking to each other. And it's interesting because you end up driving cars that you never drive. Like today I was driving the Z4, which is a car that literally or the Assetto Corsa, the Abarth, the race version, which is a car that I literally never drove in Assetto Corsa. I just launched it to do the AI, and that's it. I never even tried it. And
True.
yeah,
True.
you realize oh my god, we have all these cars and they all feel different from another.
I think that's the best thing of Assetto Corsa. I mean, you get into a car and you can feel the character of the car.
I also was unlucky. I got the F40, and I was like, oh my god, that's the only car. I think that's the only car in Assetto Corsa where I spin every single time.
Now that you mentioned the F40, there is a question from Tob Bergman, which says, which Assetto Corsa car I hate the most?
The F40.
I don't hate the cars, but I fear some cars, and I usually fear the cars that they are, idols to the people, the cars that everybody dreams of, like the
Countach.
Yeah, the Countach or the GT40.
We were a little bit nervous because people expect the Countach to be, a spaceship, but it's really not, isn't it?
Yeah. You get, even I mean, when I was young, I had some of the posters of those iconic cars, and then you get to read on the data and you see how the mechanics are, then you already see the matrix, and you are like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. People will kill us for this thing. Because by seeing the data that this car can't handle or can do whatever the journalist is telling about the car, And I really have big fear for those kind of cars. But one thing that I've learned doing those cars is that usually the things that make those cars difficult to drive is practically what people expecting from the cars. They expect that, oh, that car is amazing and must be difficult, and
it's gonna kill you.
Yeah, and they love it in the end, and that's always a big relief for me when the car goes out and people love it.
I'm not sure which is the car that I hate most. I'm sure what's the truck that I hate most, and it's the Notion Life. Just because it's a pain to work with, because you get a report of the AI doing something stupid wherever, like 11 kilometers away from the start, and just to get there, you just need to sit there and wait for the AI to get there to understand what the AI is doing wrong, and and definitely the cars where the AI makes it difficult, and so the Exos was always a nightmare because everything happens too fast for the AI to
And now we
understand.
have even faster Formula One.
Now I'm meeting the new one. Although well, it depends on the track. In tracks like Monza there in Austria, it does really well, the AI. I tried it yesterday on Imola and it was not good. So I went to sleep after Italy lost with Germany, and then I said, okay, let me see the SF15 on Imola, and it was a disaster. And I was like, I want to kill myself. That's not
Oh, no.
Anyway. Okay, guys. I think we can wrap this one up. Thank you very much, Aris, for
Thank
joining
you. That was
us. I
great.
hope you guys, appreciate the fact that Aris as well is taking a Sunday afternoon to join us. We will go back to work on the ERS for the F1. I'll see you next week. Next week, my plan is to do lots of driving, just show you all the new cars, the new track as well, and talk about the peculiar part, and also the AI. There was I did a lot of stuff this week on the AI. So yeah, well, we don't know yet, but
But it's steps, guys. Steps. Always steps.
it's steps. I have to see, but definitely I saw some amazing race happening between all AI, which is something that really usually doesn't happen in Assetto Corsa, where races tend to be a little bit boring. But I changed the way the car interact with each other, and we are in a situation where, well, first of all, they are totally ruthless when they need to pass you. Before you had this AI behind you sort of thinking about it, should I pass, should I not pass? Right now, we are in the situation where they just, don't even think about it, and you find AI passing you. I was trying in Monza with the Exos, and I went from 7th position on the grid to last in less than one lap. It's like they were passing me everywhere. So we will see. Let's hope that it comes good, so I can show you something good next week. Thank you very much for joining the stream, and ciao ciao.